I didn't see the number 83 of Buchanan and Evans, unfortunately, on the grid, and there is an empty spot in front of Dorman and Oldroyd where the number 83 of Ross Buchanan and Adam Evans would have been. So, green flag at the back, red lights are on, the revs rise, lights are out, and we are racing then 10 laps for the FSRA British Formula 2 sidecars, and it's a good launch from pole position there for Lee Crawford and Scott Hardy. Scott Hardy having a look around there, and right behind them is number 29 of Stephen Kershaw and Reese Gibbons. So that is your first two with Kieran Clark and Andrew Johnson, the luminous orange Eddie's Moto supported number 9 outfit right there in third place, but it's Lee Crawford leading the way, Keith.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee Crawford is away with this one. You're right about the Eddie's Moto sponsor machine. That is definitely visible from a long way off. That almost puts Greg Lambert to shame, quite frankly, especially with the red light on the back of it as well. So the track now looks pretty much dry going up the hill there. There's a slight damp patch, but not enough to give any spray off of these big fat tyres. They were going up each side of the track there, so I'm hoping everybody's got slick tyres on, because 10 laps around here is going to destroy a set of wets very quickly indeed. Lee Crawford then, Scott Harvey in the chair. They are absolutely dominating this race. They've got to have a gap of about a second and a half or so as they anchor up down there into Mansfield. Come out of Mansfield up towards the chicane. Few overtaking opportunities going on towards the back there, but at the sharp end there's pretty much line astern as the leaders make their way out of the chicane, under the bridge and up towards the bottom of the mountain at a great rate of knots. This is proper F2 racing, isn't it, Bradley?
You're absolutely right, Stephen. Matthew Ramsden, the father and son pairing from Hebden Bridge, the number 99. They're having a much better showing already than what they had yesterday. They were 9th place overall yesterday, 7th in class. That's the Supers. Of course, we do have the Cup in this race as well, but they are already into 5th position overall. So Stephen Matthew Ramsden, the black and orange number 99, will keep an eye on the progress, or their progress, as they make their way into the Woodland section, but already out of barn and coming around to complete lap number 1. Lee Crawford and Scott Hardy, they have the race lead by 1.3 seconds over Stephen Kershaw and Reese Gibbons. A further second behind it is Kieran Clark and Andrew Johnson. Carl Fennick and Jake Roberts up next. There's Stephen Matthew Ramsden ahead of Rob Dawson and Matt Sims. That's your top 6. Dawson and Sims are the leading Cup runners ahead of Saunders and Stoko by just over half a second. That is first and second in the Cup, number 97 and 96, but it is Lee Crawford and Scott Hardy who lead the way by 1.3 seconds.
Yeah, they certainly do. They're absolutely dominating proceedings. Looking further down the field, everybody pretty much behaving themselves. Nobody going for any great challenges. I wonder if people are pacing themselves, because 10 laps around Cadwell Park doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a very physical circuit for both driver and passengers. So it might be that some people are just keeping their powder dry, not pushing on too hard. But you don't want to let people get too far away. But at the moment, I have to say the top 3 look to be quite established. Top 4 even. Looks like we could have a bit of a fight there for around about the 5th place as they come down the hill. I think that's the Ramsons there who are heading the way ahead of Dawson and Sims and Saunders and Stoko there. And of course, Dawson and Sims and Ramsons are in slightly different classes, but obviously the only difference between being a cup runner and a regular runner is that it's your first year in this class, but doesn't mean to say it's your first year racing sidecars, because lots of familiar names and not a lot of orange vests out there at the moment. So obviously the timing screen is changing very rapidly down by you. I'll be interested to hear see the lap times when they come along. Actually give us an idea of how damp the track is. Yesterday we peaked 35 and a half for Crawford and Hardy, so very rapid lap indeed. They're going to be the bellwether as far as the timings go. I mean, they're across the line now. They've done, what is it, 38, isn't that, Bradley?
Yeah, 1 minute 38.097, fastest lap of the race, half a second quicker than Kershaw and Gibbons. They open up their advantage to 1.7 seconds. It's all pretty much equidistant within the top 7, but here comes across the line now, around about 7, 8, 9 outfits, all heading in towards Coppice now, and it's very much a freight train there for the battle for 8, that is, sorry. Schofield and Astley have Brian and Hyde. They were separated by just 1/100th of a second. Then there's Wayne Lockie and Ben Binns. Then it's Hegarty and Ludlow, Bruce and Ashmore up next. Then it's Brian Alaria and Ben Gale. Then it's Schofield, Smith, Thomason, Sixworth, Morford and Ryder. But that is around about 9 outfits separated by 3 seconds.
Yeah, I tell you what, they're a really close battle for me just coming past here. I think it's Brian and Hyde, Lockie, Binns, Hegarty and Ludlow. They were pretty much 3 abreast as they went across the top there. I tell you what, I don't want to be the commentator's curse, mate. We've got some dark clouds coming over this way. I'm going to keep a very close eye on the windows behind me because there's nothing to worry about at the moment. But you do generally wonder. We are getting some nasty little things forming around here. Down the hill they come then, and there's a challenge there. Oh, that was a very smooth move. Couldn't quite see who that was, but they pulled out and claimed the place. You're going to see some chopping and changing when they come past you. Look at this bunch of bikes just coming out of the chicane now, mate.
Got them here, yeah, and there's nothing to separate them really as they go into the bottom of the mountain there. We've got about 7, all separated by absolutely nothing. Lee Crawford and Scott Hardy back across the line once again to complete lap number 3, and it's a 1 minute 38.5 compared to Kershaw and Gibbons, a 1 minute 38.9 and a 39.6 for Clark and Johnson. That is your top 3 across the line. There is a change of 5th position actually, as the leader of the Cup series at the moment there, Dawson and Sims, they have put Stephen Matty Ramsden between themselves and their nearest challenger within the Cup class, Saunders and Stokoe. So Rob Dawson and Matty Sims up into 5th place now overall, ahead of Stephen Matty Ramsden. Then it is Saunders and Stokoe, Schofield and Astley. But here comes that battle. Brian and Hyde have Bruce and Ashmore all over them, and they're going too wide now. Bruce and Ashmore going too wide with the number 117 of Schofield and Smith, but they just about hold on to their position, and that is for 14th and 15th overall, 6th and 7th position in class, but only 0.3 of a second between them as the race leaders now make their way down from the gooseneck in towards Mansfield. But last time around, Keith, Lee Crawford and Scott Hardy went purple in sector number 1, and they've done it again, purple in sector number 1 on this lap. So
I think that's the track just coming to them just that little bit here and there, a little bit more grip in some of those places that might have been damp a lap ago by the time we've had 20 odd sidecars go over them with their fat tyres. I think that just brings out the moisture and spreads it a bit thinner.
There is a dry line as they go in towards Coppice. A dry line is yet to appear on the exit of Barn, but a dry line is definitely there at Coppice, so we'll keep an eye on that one. But already deep into the woodland section now, round the hairpin, short burst of power in towards Barn, and reappearing back into our sight right on cue is the number 17 of Crawford and Hardy. This will be the end of lap number 4, 6 more to go at this stage. So there is Kershaw and Gibbons, that is number 29. 3.1 seconds adrift now, but the fastest lap of the race on that lap with 2 purple sectors, a 1 minute 37.5 for your race leaders. So it has all spread out in the battle inside the top 4. Rob Dawson and Matty Sims, the number 97 and the leaders of the Cup at the moment, they are putting some distance between themselves and Stephen Matty Ramsden, so they are across the line 5th and 6th, with James Saunders and Sarah Stokoe, the number 96, they are in 7th position at the moment, 2nd in class. Here comes Schofield and Astley, they are 3rd of the Cup Series at the moment. There goes Wayne Lockie and Ben Binns ahead of Hegarty and Ludlow. Brian Alaria and Ben Gale just outside the top 10, but knocking on the door of it as everybody inside the top 14, Keith, besides Fenwick and Roberts, go personal best.
Yeah, that track is definitely getting better all the way around the circuit. It certainly looks very dry out where I am. I can see that lack of dry line coming out of Barn there. That's obviously one of the last places to dry because you've got the heavy tree coverage down there. But as the racing progresses, that should hopefully disappear. I think we've lost Gary Bryan and Phil Hyde. I think they'll be disappearing from your timing screen, mate. I did hear, I think it was the 16 outfit going back to...
So they've not come across the line at the end of the
Yeah, that's what I thought. So we've lost the 16 machine, unfortunately for them. We do hope we'll see them out later on this afternoon. Nothing too serious to hamper their progress. I'm surprised how spread out it is at the front of the field, actually. I was hoping that in these slightly trickier conditions, we might see a little bit of a mix-up, might see somebody take it to Lee Crawford and Scott Hardy, but it's not going to be happening anytime soon by the look of it, is it, Bradley?
Now, we've got a battle going into the bottom of the mountain now, and that looks like it could well be Wayne Lockie and Ben Binns trying to find a way through on the number 71 of Schofield and Astley. That is an on-track battle. Schofield and Astley 3rd of the Cup runners, Lockie and Binns 6th of the Super runners at this stage. But out of Barn and across the line now is the 97 of Rob Dawson and Matty Sims. There is Stephen Matty Ramsden with the number 96 of James Saunders and Sarah Stokoe trying to close the gap. They were 0.2 of a second quicker on that previous lap, and the gap is 0.9 of a second. So there's that 4-way scrap now coming across the line for 8th position. And it is still as you were. Schofield ahead of Lockie, ahead of Hegarty, and then Brian Alaria and Ben Gale up next in 11th position.
Just watching these passengers sort themselves out. They come onto the straight here. Obviously, they're leaning right over the driven wheel to try and keep the outfit nicely balanced, and the way how athletic they are, where they tuck themselves in tight as they possibly can to allow the maximum aerodynamic advantage. I'd say the battle between the Ramsdens and Saunders and Soko, they might be in different classes, but they definitely seem to be racing for their lives. Likewise, that battle behind me, Schofield Astley and Lockie Binns battle, that was very close coming past me as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of people out there doing the best they can, but out in front, there's quite a bit of a gap between first and second, second and third, third and fourth, and so on. It's only when we get down to that Ramsden versus Saunders and Soko battle that we start to see some pretty close action. But yeah, it's amazing how athletic these passengers are. Were you tucking in that half when you're doing your passenger laps there, Bradley?
No. No chance. I didn't move.
I know, that's what I said. I remember my friend of mine doing it. He was telling me how he's going to be hanging out the outfit. He's going to be doing this, going to be doing that. And he basically sat there and just hung on for dear life.
If you want something to humble you, that is it.
Yeah, definitely an interesting ambition outweighing the talent, shall we say.
So interestingly enough, that battle between, in fact, Saunders and Stoker have got through on Stephen Matty Ramsden, whether it's a mistake or not, or if they got a little bit too close for comfort, I can see that Stephen Matty Ramsden went about 4 seconds slower than their fastest of the race so far, and that's dropped them down to 7th overall. That is still 5th in class, bear in mind, but that is 7th on the track now, as Saunders and Stoker have found a way through, but they are now 5 seconds adrift from Rob Dawson and Matty Sims.
Yeah, I think Saunders and Stoko, they're definitely, maybe they're getting held up a little bit. I'm not quite sure. I do wonder if the Ramsdens have got a little bit of a problem there, because where did Steve and Matty finish yesterday? No, well, they finished in 9th place. Then, of course, the other thing that might be coming into play as well, I do wonder if there's any tyre choices. The lap time suggests that everybody's out there on dry weather tyres, though, don't they? Because what sort of times are we looking at? Are we into the 36s yet, mate?
Not yet. 37.460 is the fastest lap of the race so far.
So a couple of seconds slower than we were yesterday, but I don't think you'd be able to do those times on wet weather tyres. Certainly not across the whole outfit, so I'm pretty sure the track is just coming to them. I think where we're picking up time is through the trees up the mountain there, coming out of Barn, where we see that lovely orange outfit just making its way up the straight there.
It's a very iconic livery almost in the sidecars now, isn't it? The Eddie's Moto bright orange livery.
We've seen that for a few years, haven't we?
Absolutely. And of course, we used to see Kieran Clark and Andrew Johnson, I'm sure, in the Prometheus Cup as well, on a very similarly coloured outfit as well.
Yeah, not quite so quick though.
No, but they certainly tried.
Yeah, they certainly did.
So here comes Saunders and Stoko, number 96 across the line now. Stephen Matty Ramsden have just lost a second or so on that lap, but there's still plenty of time behind them. But we've got some side-by-side action already here as Wayne Lockie and Ben Binns have found a way through on the number 71 of Schofield and Astley, and they come across the line only a tenth of a second separating them as they go in towards Coppice. So again, I remind you, Lockie and Binns 6th of the Supers, Schofield and Astley 3rd of the Cup, but there's a sidecar in front you want to overtake. It is as simple as that, isn't it, Keith?
Yep, absolutely. Whoever's in front of you is your competition. It's as simple as that. As the 4 and the 71 come past me, and yet they're only separated across the line, separated by 0.2 of a second. They might have gone out just a little bit, and doesn't matter if they're in a different class, they're in the same sort of machine, so they are your competition at the end of the day. I do wonder if back markers are going to have a role to play here as well, Bradley. I think everybody's far enough away from each other that anybody catching a back marker should be able to get past quite happily, and I can see another outfit going very slowly up the straight there. I think somebody else might well be retiring. I'll keep it here on the radio and see if I can pick up who that is, but I think you're going to see somebody else's number dropping down the board very shortly, mate.
I'll keep an eye on it there. We are on to the penultimate lap now. You can see Lee Crawford and Scott Hardy. They're making the way past you now. So the gap is 5.2 seconds. Kershaw and Gibbons are across the line, as is Clark and Johnson. We'll try and keep an eye on that second sector to see who doesn't reappear on this lap.
Carl Fenwick and Jake Roberts, unfortunately. The 87 machine. Just heard the number being called across the radio there. So Carl and Jake are back to the paddock, which is very annoying, of course. Hopefully, again, nothing too serious, and hopefully we'll be seeing them out again shortly.
So that will be good news then for Kieran Clark and Andrew Johnson, because that puts them up into the podium positions. The number 3 machine there, and then Stephen Matty Ramsden move up into 4th place in the Supers ahead of Wayne Lockie and Ben Binns. So Wayne Lockie has put in a 1 minute 42.3. That is his personal best lap of the race. Stephen Matty Ramsden on that previous lap of 43.9, but with 2 laps to go, that is very much a bridge too far. So go. Looking down on the circuit once again, and the number 37 is making the way across the line now. That is Charlie Morfitt and Dave Ryder. They've made up a couple of positions ahead of the 23 of Thomas and Sigsworth. So the race leaders then will be, in fact, they're coming around Barn now. So looking at...
I think Hegarty and Ludlow found their way past Schofield and Astley there as well. I think they might have made a move across the top here. We'll be interested to see if they can hold on to that. We are getting running out of time very rapidly. The other thing that's going to become a factor in a 10-lap race around here, of course, is driver and passenger fatigue, because very hard to hang on to this outfit. Yeah, that's definitely Hegarty. Very distinctive colouring there. He's now at the front of that three-bike battle as they make their way up towards the chicane. So that's an extra place and some more points for him, I think, unless that's not a change for... Is he in the same class or not?
Who are you looking at there, sorry?
Look at Hegarty. Yeah, no, he's past Schofield and Astley, so that's more points. That moves into a podium position, I think.
It does, so absolutely.
That's a bronze medal for his trouble, so that was well worth the move doing that. I'll tell you what, though, I'm watching the Eddie's Moto machine go up the hill there. The number 9 of Clark and Johnson and Crawford and Hardy are coming back down the other side out of towards Mansfield. They really are absolutely on it, those guys. They're out of the class of the field by a fair stretch at the moment, aren't they? They're certainly gelling well with the circuit here.
No, you're absolutely right. Lee Crawford and Scott Hardy, they've been having a good season so far. And I had the pleasure, in fact, Keith, I was telling you the other day that Lee Crawford came up to the commentary box at Oliver's Mount and helped me out with the commentary and the interviews for the sidecars, which was always good there. He towers over me as he does everybody else, but always a pleasure to have a chat with Lee Crawford. Well, he is the new lap record holder here at Cadwell Park, and he's coming out of Barn now as the pit board goes out. I shan't read what it says, as he comes across the line to take the checkered flag then. Here comes the number 29 of Stephen Kershaw and Rhys Gibbons. At the end of the race then, those 10 laps, just shy of 25 miles, 3.5 seconds was the difference between Lee Crawford and Stephen Kershaw, but still that is first and second in class and overall. Next across the line, that's the number 6 of Baker and Dawkins. They will take 9th in class, albeit a lap down. And there is the Eddie's Moto machine, number 9, Kieran Clark and Andrew Johnson. They will round off the podium in the Supers. Once again, we'll have a few moments wait while we look for the number 97 of Rob Dawson and Matty Sims. And they're currently 4th overall and first in class. This is for the Cup Series, so this will be another 25 points then in the pocket for Rob Dawson and Matty Sims. So good stuff there. They immediately shake hands. That is a job well done for Dawson and Sims. The 96 of Saunders and Stokoe at the end of that one seemed to be coming under a little bit of pressure from Stephen Matty Ramsden, but they just ran out of time at the end of that one, unfortunately. So Stephen Matty Ramsden, they will take 4th in class, 6th position overall ahead of Wayne Lockie and Ben Binns, who on that final lap set their personal best lap of the race of a 41.8. A 42.8 for Hegarty and Ludlow is their personal best, and that is 3rd in the Cup. So the overall top 10 all across the line, rounded off by Schofield and Astley with Brian Alaria and Ben Gale. Schofield and Smith, Bruce and Ashmore up next, 11th and 12th. But let's have a look then. In the Supers,